5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm John Miglosh for the WDMA, and we're going to be talking about human involvement today. And here we go. But first, in the spirit of searching the world for interesting commercials, I found a few from South Africa, and this one just has a world of insights into the world of South Africa and making your marketing fit your customer. Okay, so the commercial starts with a little truck pulling up to a homeowner's place, and a black guy and a white guy, and the white guy's telling the black guy, "Come on, chop chop, get the truck unloaded." And it's called Monument Electrical. Okay, and so here let's get going in it. Okay, the sound isn't too good, so I've just left it alone, you know. And he says, "Chop chop, get going, unload that truck, let's go." And then so he's doing all the work, and the white guy's eating cookies with the homeowner. And you think, what a bunch of racist, crazy stuff. And then the black guy gets a call, and he says, "Yeah, sure, we'll be right over." And then you got to see this part. Here he goes. Pause. Now they're changing jackets. The black guy takes off his worker jacket, and the white guy's going to put it on, and the white guy's taking off the sign on the side of the truck. So now they're driving along, and they pull into another homeowner, and it says Ubuntu Electrical. So they've got an African name on the truck. Okay, and the black guy gets out, says hello to the homeowner, and the white guy's unloading everything and doing all the work, and it's a Ford commercial, and I just thought that was really something. And you know, it's kind of refreshing to have a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek, you know, how the contractors are basically putting one over on the homeowners. But the Ford is built tough, and it's doing the work. The Ford is doing the work. So anyway, I just thought that was enormously creative. So let's move over to the PDF. Boom, boom. Here we go. Okay, this was an article I ran across a couple of weeks ago. I've been wanting to get it. I've been wanting to show it to you. Remove humans from product images when possible. Okay, and this is by Nick Colenta, and he always includes the studies in his articles. This will be available, of course, at WDMA.org after the show. At some point after the show, we never know quite when. And he shows a picture of a blender. This is a fictitious mock-up, and he says, "Get rid of this picture. It doesn't help." And of course, I've always been a big fan of putting human touch into catalogs to give them personality and to make and have seen the revenue per piece go up by adding humans. So I wanted to see what Nick had to say here. He says, if customers need human access to quality, in other words, apparel, beauty, or jewelry, then yes, include people in your images. So what he's saying right off the bat is the blender doesn't care about the people, but the jewelry might. The jewelry might connect. You might want to sort of see how that would look on yourself. There's a principle that print connects. One of the reasons print connects is that there's a principle of possession. When you see something, when you own it, you want to keep it. Okay? That's why we never throw anything out. So you're not going to take it from someone else, but if you can visualize yourself as owning a product, the car or the house or the jewelry, then you're more likely to want to keep it and keep the mailing piece and not let go and buy the thing. It's, you know, I don't know how well tested it is. I don't know how well documented, but here's a study from 2005, but here's a study from 2023. It says travel destinations, this is really interesting. Travel destinations received fewer likes if they showed somebody in the photo. This effect reduced sales also. And this is from a study. You can get, again, the links will be on the WDMA.org website. You have to be a subscriber, so you want to sign up. It's free. Or you can contribute to our effort, join the digital resistance, and actually join WDMA. It's probably one of the less expensive industry associations that you could be a member of. Okay, lack of ownership. You can say, well, maybe it gets flipped. Maybe it's it's their product, not my product. Contagion. Maybe products seem inferior when other people touch them. I noticed that, I've got this laptop, and when it came, it was clean as a whistle. It was beautifully cleaned. Now it's got fingerprints all over it, and it doesn't feel as valuable as when I first bought it. Okay, and maybe less unique if everybody's got it, but I tend to think that one goes the other way, and that doesn't have a study. Other takeaways: if you can't remove somebody, try cropping their head. And we used to never crop heads. We used to think it dehumanized people. Not sure. You can test these things. It's a little bit tricky to test, and probably not something you'd want to put at the top of the list. But we could test it, especially in postcards or in smaller mailing pieces where you could A/B split the images pretty easily. Okay, remove symbolic customers. To clarify, you can and should show images of service providers who don't represent the customer. That's often the way we approach this technique. We would put pictures of the customer support people, or pictures of the product engineers, or pictures of the installers, or testimonials. That would be another thing, but not necessarily in the product picture itself. But I do encourage you to put scale references, okay? So especially, I see thermos bottles and things like that, and it's not clear how big they are. And, put a golf ball in there, or put a golf tee, or put something that we know how big it is. Golf tees have gotten bigger, so I'm not sure that's a good one. And important with used products. Used products seem inferior when customers see traces left by previous owners. And again, there's a study right there you can link to. Okay, interesting. Now we're going to talk about AI without humans. Now that we've removed humans from the product pictures. Jonathan Kitchens from My Total Retail says that AI can't exist in e-commerce without the help of humans. Here's why. And again, as I mentioned yesterday, the why was a little bit missing in Mike Gunderson's pick. And he commented below yesterday, which was funny. And he sort of agreed. Said he could have had more why. He can do a whole nother blog article on the why of A/B testing, and I hope he does. Okay. Critical that companies couple AI with human analysis. It talks about how everybody's jumping into AI, and it could provide relevant data and insights to help retailers improve financial performance and customer satisfaction. I would like to see some case studies on that, because I really haven't. Everybody's jumping in without any kind of testing much, or certainly not mentioning it, especially when it comes to understanding consumer preferences. And that, AI will not give you understanding. It will give you correlation. That's what it gives you. Okay, so AI is a way to provide tailored shopping experiences, and then Jonathan cites a study, and I did look up that study, and I'll probably post it on the website, that 80% of customers are interested in making purchases when offered personalization from retailers. It was really interesting, and they said 90% of customers said they would like personalization. It's from a 2018 Epsilon study, that 90% of customers, pharmaceutical customers or pharmacy customers, would like personalization, but they said only about 85% of retailers but they said 85% of retailers didn't offer anything like that. And here's the problem. The problem is that we don't really know what you want. And you can say, well, the AI tells us this is what they wanted. This is why they looked at this item and this item and this item. And here's the connection. Well, the chances are there is no connection. Chances are, and Jonathan especially mentions the gifting platform, which he is the CEO of a gifting platform of 20 million customers. And Jonathan, I would like to reach out to you and say, I would love to see how your AI works. And we'll talk about data modeling in just a second, okay? But gifting is especially difficult. I worked with one of the oldest catalogs in America, and their main customer was people giving gifts. Well, it was one of the categories of customers, Okay, there were also some health products. There were some electronic innovations and stuff. But a lot of the customers were gifting, and they would actually offer gifting services, so we knew that, right? But here's the problem, so now I want a gift for my granddaughter Natalia. Maybe I want a gift for my wife, and maybe I want those whiskey glasses for myself, which I did actually order. Okay, what does that tell you? It's really scratch your head, and the average customer, the mode, the most common number of purchases is one. The most common number of items on a purchase is one. So the most frequent purchases. So what does that tell you about the customer preference? If you go with the whiskey glasses. Although the funny part was I got an email from them not too long after the whiskey glasses that said that I might be interested in a bug vacuum. Now, what sense does that make? It didn't make any sense to me. And I thought it was funny and apparently I have a catalog simulation where you pick items, and apparently I had actually browsed at one point a bug vacuum because it's part of my game, my simulation game. So they picked up on that. But I wasn't interested in buying it, and that's the problem. Why am I looking at this? I don't even know half the time, right? And so personalization without context is dangerous. And I've made this comment a number of times, but Amazon, when Amazon recommends a product, you know that they don't say, based on your purchase preferences, based on what you bought from us before, and they have better history than anybody. My kids just continually buy from Amazon, but you don't know why they're buying from Amazon. Why are they buying what they're buying? You don't know that. Amazon doesn't know that, right? And so it's a dangerous game. And so from day one, when Amazon used to take, when an item got listed on Amazon and somebody bought another item, they would put that in the first item's file, and it would have, so it was whiskey glasses and bug vacuum. Okay, and then the next thing was lawn sprinkler, and the next thing was air filter, or whatever it was. And once those 5 things were filled in, they never changed it. They just said, people who bought this also bought this. See, there's a humility in that. There's a humility that they're not saying that it makes sense to you, but with book purchases, it probably does make some sense. And the next step was to say, well, how many items, what's the most common item bought? And not, as computers got better and the data got cheaper to store, you could say, what's the most common item? But before that, they literally just put in, customers who bought this item also bought. And they have always kept that phrase. And I'm sure they've tested it. Think about that. Okay? Well, Jonathan doesn't really give you why it's essential. It is essential because the AI will give crazy stuff, and you want to keep testing the AI and see what its recommendations are and see if it makes any sense, But he does reiterate that human analysis is indispensable. He says that several times. Let's go over here to Gunderson. Sam Kablawi, what a cool name. Anyway, the evolution and future of data modeling, okay, for direct mail. And I think it's interesting. It was an interesting title for me because, I was doing data modeling. I remember my first encounter with data modeling. Tim Maybe was working at Neiman Marcus, and he gave a presentation about the lift that could be derived from modeling versus versus something. He put up a slide and said, we got this lift, a beautiful, amazing lift. We did 40% better, or 80% better, or 200% better. So I raised my hand and I said, Tim, compared to what? What do you, And he said, a random customer selection. And of course, even in those days, we didn't do random customer selections. You could run a company on recency alone, but you wouldn't run it without it. Some customers were older and were not, I don't mean older in age. I mean, they were older They were a longer time since they'd bought. Their recency was a long time ago. And so you knew that the 4 or 5 year old buyers were less likely to buy. And part of it was because you've already mailed them now. Let's say you mailed them monthly, so 5 years would be 60 times without them reordering. That's a pretty good indicator, you know. It's more probably about how many times have we mailed them since they bought, how much have we wasted. And I've told that story about prospecting, that you may not know who's going to buy, but you probably can predict after a while who's not going to buy. And so we would, but if you would have compared AI or machine learning in those days, or modeling, it was probably a regression model, to just RFM, it probably would have been difficult to beat it, okay? Because RFM is very powerful. And when we model, we use recency almost all the time as a foundation. Now, not every time. And if you look in my book, you'd hear some good stories about how recency can get you in completely the wrong area. But anyway, so transactional online, offline data sources have provided increasingly deep insights. And I would say, no, it shows you the correlations. It shows you the things that mathematically matter. But a human is required, well, I can just say, we do modeling, we build about 1,000 variables, that generates about 500 variables, and then we run the model with transaction data. And we say, well, who would have bought from this meal? How would this model have done from this mailing or whatever? And then we validate it, and then we start looking at it and saying, does this make any sense? So there's a heavy human element. The model does quickly tell us the correlations. And you'll see some amazing things. You know, you see some amazing correlations of zip code data where the percentage of 85 plus year old disabled veterans is a home run in one small cell way over in the corner. And you say, that doesn't make any sense. I spent about 90% of my work throwing out the stuff that just couldn't make any sense, that wasn't going to work in the real world. And it's not clear to me that that Sam has put enough work in, or put enough content in here about the human element. He's right. Once it took weeks to generate a single model. Once it took months. You know, when we started, the average cataloger had one model for all their customers, right? And, you know, my book, Sam, I really encourage you, maybe I'll send you one if you reach out to me or join the you're already a member of the WDMA through Gunderson. But once it took months, now, yeah, it takes about 10 working days. Although I would note that 10 working days is 2 weeks. So it still may take Sam weeks. So it came along in the 1980s, and that's when I remember going to the DMA and hearing about it. Generate incremental business by finding new people who are most likely, and this is prospect modeling, and that's quite a bit different than customer modeling. And oftentimes you'll use customer data to inform you. What you do is you turn off the transaction data and you look at how your customers behaved by geodemographics and other data. And that does make sense. But the problem that you have is that the number of customers is very small. So we did prospect modeling for In-Fisherman, who sold subscriptions to fishing magazines. And what we found was in a 500,000 piece mailing, we only even mailed into 20,000 of the 50,000 zip codes. Even though we mailed 500,000 pieces, they only went into 20,000 of the 50,000 zip codes that exist. And of the 20,000 zip codes we mailed into, only about 2,000 got any orders. And of those 2,000 that had orders, only about 80% of them had just one subscription in the whole zip code. Okay, so the ability to prospect model from that level of data is suspicious. let's say. I'm not going to say it doesn't work. But we decided to flip it on its head, and we decided to model from people who are least likely to buy. And so we looked at the zip codes that we'd spent the most money in, and we'd mailed 100 pieces in and didn't get one single subscriber. And we said, well, if we can figure out the characteristics of these bad zip codes, we're really off and running in the prospect modeling. And I would say that in general makes more sense. Okay, so Sam is right. You want to gather data related to website visits and online customer behaviors. You really, when you're doing prospect modeling, you really want to scrape the Milky Way and find anything you can find. And today you can build variables. I mean, when we first started in 1994 with the Hudson Bay Company, they were processing in a good month 20 million transactions. So since 1994, we were doing big data. We started their model building with 250 million 250 million transactions on a Pentium, the first Pentium, right? Okay, so in the mid 200s, mid-aughts, mid 2010s, but back in 95, we figured out how to mash our way through 250 million transactions. So, granted, no one else had figured that out. But, so the modeling exercises, well, if we actually looked at the nonsense that the model was kicking out, it did still cost thousands of dollars. But now you can generate multiple models based on various inputs and assumptions and then backtest. Now what's the problem? What is this backtest? Well, backtest means that we look at the model and we say, did it give lift? And the problem is that when you mail it, it never gives the lift that you expected. And why? Well, part of the reason is because the model is only giving you its mathematical calculations of what correlates, of what looks promising, okay? But in the real world, those things are just stupid. I mean, we did get the percentage of mobile homes to work from Musician's Friend, and it was one of our secret variables that worked really well. And but in general, a human can't conceive of a causal link between most of the stuff that correlates and that the model digs up. And so when you use a backtest, what you're basically doing is you're believing the nonsense. And if that's your level of modeling, then I want to go head to head with you because we've beaten pretty much everybody, and usually they cite the backtest. They don't want to test in the real world. I highly encourage you not to use backtests for anything really important. I mean, that's basically the validation. For every model we put out, we probably did 20 validations, which takes the backtest and says, does this make any sense? Most models, you can't even tell what they're doing, and no one looks at them. And that's the concern I have, Sam, is that the modelers, there are no modelers now. With AI, they're just throwing up the backtest and putting it in the mail. And I would love to go head to head. So have a great day. Like and share. Sam, let's talk. I'd love to interview you and find out what you're really saying because you're probably on the same page with me as it is. Bye-bye.